In this course, we've seen how the default logging works in Docker. We use the docker logs command to see standard out for a running container. And when we run a container non-detached, we can see the output as well. In production situations, this might not be ideal. In modern cloud environments, logs are typically shipped off the server to a centralized log server or database. In recent versions of Docker, the log handling for containers can be changed at container launch time. This is done using log drivers. The log driver that Docker uses by default is called the JSON file log driver. The JSON file log driver automatically writes all logs to disk and can stream the logs to a Docker client. This is how we can tail the logs when we run a container. You can specify the log driver to use when you run a container with the log driver option. If we want to be explicit about using the JSON file log driver when we run a container, we can do it like this. Of course, we don't need to specify the JSON file log driver to use it, but if we want to use any of the other available log drivers, we'll need to specify one. Let's try a more elaborate example. Docker provides a Splunk logging driver that will ship logs directly to a Splunk HTTP event collector. Splunk is a popular logging service that collects, indexes, and provides search capabilities for application logs. The nice thing about logging drivers is that applications don't need to be concerned with their log destination, so they can simply log to standard out. Let's try our Hello O'Reilly container with the Splunk driver. There's a Splunk image available that we can use to test the logging driver. We've mapped the Splunk port to the Docker host on port 8000, which is the admin UI port. We can now log into Splunk and configure the HTTP event collector. First, we need to set up a source type for our Docker containers. We'll just call our new source type Docker. Source types are a way to group different sources of log data in Splunk. Now that we've created a source type, we can associate a token with it, which we can use to ship logs to the event collector. To set up the event collector interface, we first go to Settings and then Data Inputs. Next, we click HTTP Event Collector. The first thing we need to do is configure the collector for our source type. We'll keep it simple for now and disable SSL. We can also specify a different port for the event collector, but we'll go ahead and use the default, which is 8088. We've already mapped this port when we started the Splunk container. Next, we need to create a token for our applications to use to authenticate with Splunk. We'll just call our token Docker as well. There's a number of other things we can change in this wizard when we're creating our token, but we can just use the defaults for now. So we'll click through to the end and get our token. Here's our token, and we can copy it to the clipboard and use it to authenticate with the collector. Let's run a container using our Splunk event collector. We just need to specify Splunk as the argument to the log driver option. Each log driver has a different set of logging options that they accept. Any options passed to a log driver are passed using the logopt flag. The logopt flag takes a name and value pair delimited by an equal sign. One of the required log options for Splunk is the Splunk token, which we can paste our newly created token as the value. The other required option is the Splunk URL. Our Splunk is running on the default Docker host on port 8088. Since we set up a source type for our container logs named Docker, we'll specify that using the log option Splunk source type. Finally, we'll run the Hello O'Reilly container from the beginning of the course. This container will simply output the message Hello O'Reilly. We should then be able to search our log message in Splunk. Now let's go back into Splunk and search for our log. By entering source type equals Docker in the search field, we found the log message that our Hello O'Reilly container produced. We see our message and also a tag. By default, the tag shipped with the logs from Docker is the container ID, but you can use the Splunk driver's tag option to change the value specified. There are a number of other logging drivers that ship with Docker as well. For integrating with Logstash, the Guelph logging driver can be used. If you'd like to ship your logs to Amazon CloudWatch logs, you can use the AWS logs driver. There's also a basic syslog driver that can be used. Each of the log drivers has its own configuration options, and as you can see, they're quite easy to try out.